sort of thing, right?
Mm-hmm.
But I was thinking of information and privacy. You can, if you in the future, if you can buy an element of privacy, the celebrities, certain executives, they want to escape to the remote places where they buy the vacation villa on a private island for the week of the month, and they're there to get away from the paparazzi and all of the prying eyes and the distractions of life. Privacy. Information now seems to be out there on everybody all the time, sometimes even, what they say, fake news, right? So from that perspective, when we think of data protection and privacy, both in the corporate and sort of governmental capacity, but also from the individual, are we looking at the data protection legislation protecting only one aspect and not all of them, or how? Mr. Richard, give us a sort of a perspective as you see it.
Yeah, I like what you said in terms of data in the 21st century.
Mm-hmm.
I've seen an article that says data is the new currency. Right, and you've seen, as well as everyone who's listening, how social media companies have become literally billionaires overnight, really, using a person's data. And in essence, you and I carry phones. We have lots of apps on those phones. Those apps are tracking what we do. What this means is that companies who can use analytical tools to determine how Richard Carty behaves, what he does, where he goes, what he likes, is able then to build a profile and then use that profile not as an individual target, but as a collective target to target a certain type of audience. So they know how old Richard is, they know where he works, the type of people he hangs out with, how he spends his money, and they can use that information and target people around my age and my geographic location and so on, look at my demographics, etc. And this is how these big companies are using, at least the larger companies are using data. And I think the data protection law is well served in that it manages to a certain degree how companies use data. It begins our attempts to manage how companies use data, and putting the data subject back in control of their own data, I think is a good thing.
From that perspective, we've heard, I believe, all of us, no matter whether we're 15 or 51 or looking at, celebrating 115 at our next birthday, information is power. That's a phrase that I think all of us have heard at some point. You know something, and that is something, whatever that something is. Nowadays, that information isn't just something you've heard. You've had it documented. Maybe it's a screenshot. Maybe it's a room with all sort of computing capabilities, and you've got this amount of information, data on the politicians, on the government, on the business leaders, on whatever that is. Information in whatever format. Power? Mr. Yan?
Yes, I would think so. Absolutely. I certainly personal data, as Richard said, is sort of the new currency. They say if you get something for free, like an app for free, then you're the product, or rather, your personal data is the product. And there's a lot of good reasons why you would make your information available. Obviously, to get certain services and to to function, you make data available all the time, and that's nothing new, in a sense, because we've done that for many years. What's new is the ability to is basically our ability to do those things online and to leave a digital trace behind that can be and that's really what's being traded and being that's really the currency that companies like Facebook and Google and so on bank on, literally. They take it all the way to the bank. Okay. And again, there's nothing necessarily wrong about that if it happens within certain boundaries. And those boundaries, I think that framework is really what we're talking about here in terms of data protection. The notion that anything goes is obviously completely wrong. we hear almost on a daily basis, and those of us who follow sort of the specialist blogs or the specialist media about this, we literally hear every day about breaches and about things that can go very, very wrong. And what that means for the individual is anything from not much to a complete, identity theft and the inability to function. Imagine if you're compromised. Your identity is compromised. Imagine what that means in your daily life. You can no longer travel. You can no longer bank. You can no longer buy things. You can't use your credit cards. Somebody has stolen not just those means of payment, but they have stolen your entire identity, and that's a very scary thing. And what happens, as Richard said, is that in profiling, companies have become very, very good at pulling together these different data points. So they know you were here at that point. They knew you visited such and such store. They know that you're interested in such and such products. They know you have this type of interest, this type of education, this, et cetera, the whole demographics around that. And I heard an amazing figure. I don't know if it's true, but for the people that have heard about Cambridge Analytica, which is the company that was doing the trying to influence elections, or so it's alleged, or
I like the term.
in terms of in the United States and possibly also in Brexit, in the Brexit vote. They said that they were doing this. They were profiling people. They were saying, okay, where did they sit on the political spectrum, and what are the types of things that they would respond to if we send them this type of ad? Would they respond to that by voting for candidate X or issue Y? But what I heard which was the amazing statistic that I just mentioned, is that they claim to have 5,000 data points per person that they influenced, or that they sought to influence. 5,000 bits of information about that person, and that's anything from I like the such and such novel or such and such movie, to I'm likely to vote for this party or that party, and I various data points. I'm married, I'm not married, I went to school here, went to school there. 5,000 points they had at their disposal, which by any means means that they probably know more about you than you know yourself.
Yeah.
And they consciously know about you that you don't even realize that is you, that sort of profile. And that's something that I'd like to maybe get to, if it's okay. I can respectfully hear some people listening to the discussion and going, oh, geez, data, that doesn't concern me. I don't work in that area. I'm careful with my credit card. That does not affect me. And so I would like it to be as informative, somewhat entertaining a little bit, to keep our interest. But for it to understand that whether you're the grandmother who is online now and again checking out, where the grandchildren are, maybe you've now retired and traveling, you posting things, but you're the business who wants to make sure that your client's information is secure, not because of some hack, but just other things. Correct. How do we can get that in? How this legislation sort of affects us, and what we should know? Maybe we could get into that a bit. I mean, we've all seen the movies, right, where the guy runs afoul of the intelligence agency, and all of a sudden, now everywhere he goes, he's being tracked, and his identity is being lifted, and he's totally, as it were, no longer exists in the world because he has no way. He's off the grid. Hey, that could be a novel I could write. Jan, you could edit it for me. All right, those are the discussions we're going to talk about. Maybe some of the algorithms that are being utilized as to influence us. Some of the things we can get into?
Yeah, I think we can get into technology as a key driver. I think this, including GDPR, is one of the legislations that says, okay, you need to ensure that your technology controls are in place, and those technology controls are doing what they say they're doing. And we will now monitor it. So if you get a breach, technically most breaches are where people lose data from a computer of some sort, whether it's a handheld device, whether it's a laptop, etc. Well, now manufacturers are thinking twice about designing code, because they know that privacy by design is a solution that helps ensure that whatever is kept within this application and how this application is administered by IT or other engineers is going to be a key factor to sell the product. So privacy by design is built in as just like you would say, if I open a laptop, I don't expect to open a laptop and be able to just go in. You want to be challenged with something, a username and password, for example. You don't want to be able to say 1, 2, 3 and get into any application because the amount of data that businesses are carrying. So now businesses have to take a really careful look at their technology platforms and say things like, our technology platforms are secure. Who's managing? Do they have the right skill sets and capabilities to manage the security around our data? And I find that this is really pushing the boundaries in terms of telling technology companies that this is acceptable and this is the benchmark that we're going to leverage how we look at security around applications. So a lot of companies are now talking about things like ISO 27001, which is a security certification that companies would say they have in order to demonstrate they have some level of control. There are other frameworks which are coming on board. Other industries like FATCA, beneficial ownership, all of these talked about technology and saying, okay, this is how we're going to safeguard people's information. If you report in terms of financial reporting, we can look at technology. But GDPR and the DPL actually says you have to ensure that your technology is doing what it says. And there's no workaround. There's no alternative controls. We have to ensure that technology is doing the sort of thing. So if you got a firewall, it is your responsibility to patch that firewall. If you've got to do vulnerability assessments, you got to do threat assessments, etc. Technology has now come to the forefront, and now there's a piece of legislation, both here in Europe, says we're going to look at what you're doing from a technology perspective to see whether or not technology is suitable and can give assurance that the information that is kept on these systems are being kept safe.
Right.
Etc.
So if I can just add one point, it's not just about technology. Technology is the means by which we communicate these days, and we capture the personal data most of the time. It's no longer a piece of paper or whatever in most cases, but it can also be that. And the data protection law talks about technology and about the security of data, but it talks about a lot more and about a lot more that is essentially common sense based. And that applies equally to perhaps a small business owner who may just have some paper files with client names and addresses, equally as to a large technology company that may be doing much more sophisticated things. And that's one of the points of the data protection law and of the model that we followed in Europe, GDPR, the fact that it is so broadly applicable. It's applicable to everybody who, as it's called, processes personal data. So anybody who does anything with personal data is caught by that act. And so it's a very broad-based, works in all kinds of different contexts, big companies, small companies, and all kinds of organizations, not only businesses, and of course also in the public sector. Public authorities are also, caught by that, core government, the statutory authorities, etc.
All right. Well, the legislation is set to come in on the 30th of September. And I don't know, you can count the days, but it's not many between now and then. A few of them are going to be rainy days. Yes. So when we come back, we invite you to be a part of our discussion. Stay tuned for Talk Today.
CUC advises participants in the Green Iguana Culling Program to exercise extreme caution around the CUC's poles and power lines, especially when extracting iguanas from trees or branches that are in close proximity to poles and power lines. Participants should keep all objects such as poles, sticks, or hooks away from any CUC equipment to avoid any electrical contact. For further information, please contact our customer service team at 949-5200 or via email at service@cuc.ky.
Hi, my name is Khadija Bodden, contestant number 6, representing the beautiful district of Bodden Town. I'm 23 years old with a bachelor's in biochemistry, a master's in regenerative medicine, and a love for the environment. I enjoy advocacy and spreading awareness, so I am so pleased to be working with our official platform, the Alex Panton Foundation. I travel whenever I get the opportunity, and Portugal is my favorite place that I've visited so far. I enjoy working out for a good de-stress, and my favorite yoga pose is the headstand. I also love having my picture taken. Thank you to Personnel 2000 Recruitment for their generous sponsorship. I can't wait to see you all on August 17th at the Ritz for the 2019 Miss Cayman Islands Universe pageant.
RC Fusion featuring Billboard pop hit songs and more from the 70s to the 90s.
RC Fusion.
Weekdays from 10 a.m. till 12. RC Fusion.
Brought to you by Tasty Patties. Baked fresh every 30 minutes. Available at Tortuga locations, the Patty Express Industrial Park, and Bake It and Take It on Eastern Avenue. Get tasty now.
Talk today.
But I do have some questions.
Talk today.
Cayman Islands' foremost listeners' participation program.
Talk today.
Because there are more questions than answers.
What the public is saying.
Waiting to take your calls right now. Sterling Dwayne Ebanks.
Hey, good afternoon, and welcome back to Talk Today. In the studio, as we talk about the Cayman data protection legislation, the Deputy Ombudsman for Information Rights, Mr. Jan Lieberts, together with Richard Cardy, and we're talking about the whole information, it's the new currency, data is the new currency. And increasingly, I think some of us are somewhat cognizant of, how we share information, little endeavors to protect, but so much of it, I think we just feel like we don't have a choice. If I could ask, then as we go about the discussion, a couple of things from the individual perspective. I'll use examples of recent from friends and family with their consent, just to disclose where, when, and what they were purchasing. From friends and family were, it's the summer, they're away traveling, so they go to a merchant. As they get to the checkout, they present their form of payment, some sort of electronic means, and then they're asked for information. What's your phone number? What's your zip code? Nothing much. Seems no social security number, no identifying passwords. Maybe those two things, and they automatically instinctively just give it. They're one or two say, I don't think you need that. Now, two things. Is that in that context, you go into a retailer, you made your purchase, the transaction is okay, but they want more information. What's your phone number? We just want to know, the phone number, or we want to know the zip code in the U.S. Let's use that. What about that?
It's a very good question, because I recently went into a merchant here, and I made my purchase, and the cashier asked for my email address. And I said, why? And she said, so we can send you some promotional material, some promotional information, etc., when, we're doing sales, etc. And I said, not really. I think what she should have said was, by the way, we time to time we do promotional information. Would you like to be part of our email broadcast, and therefore ask for my email address. She did it the other way around. That's culture. And I think one of the biggest...
Training to the respectful.
It's training, but a lot of... and it's the same wherever you go, whenever you get a new law in place. And every business has it. Every business has a cultural way of doing it, although they're staying within the confine of what we call, quote-unquote, business. The general culture of handling personal information, or at least giving personal information, is that the retailer thinks that you are obligated to give them that information. That's culture. Yeah. They believe that in order for us to give you the service, we need this information. Not true.
Right.
They only need the information. The only information they need is the information to support the particular activity that they're trying to perform. So now vendors are going to have to think very carefully about what information they're asking data subjects for, asking individuals for, whether you are on the street. And I mean, I had another example where I walked into a rental car company. I just rented a car. Mm-hmm. The moment I got there, she said, "Can I have your credit card?" And I said, "Why?" She said, "Oh, we need to get other insurance. We need to charge your card for other insurance." I said, "What other insurance?" Now, what she should have said to me is that under the current insurance that you have, this is what you're covered for. This is what you can be covered for, an exception to that insurance. It is not mandatory. It is voluntary. So, do you want the service? Then if I said yes, then I give her my credit card.
Okay, I want to pick on that.
Yeah, so that in terms of data protection and the DPL, the data protection law, the law, as you may know, is based on a number of principles, and that sounds very lofty, but it's actually a good way of protecting against future technological change. It's literally 1980, and they have really not changed very much. And that's, of course, one way of guarding against, future changes. If you make your legislation specific to a particular technology, then you're very quickly going to be outdated. So this is anyway. That's just an aside. Mm-hmm. But there are these principles, and specifically the third principle is called the data minimization principle, and that sounds very lofty, but it's basically about this very example that we're talking about here, which is to say you should only use the information that is relevant and that is not excessive. So you can't just, for the sake of it, gather data. You need to think about what is the purpose that I need it for, and then what do I need. Mm-hmm. And there's loads of examples of where that has been, where data gathering is being done in an excessive way. Mm-hmm. For example, the government itself used to have on its application forms a question about what is your religion. And that's actually, something that everybody for a number of years were sort of scratching their heads and going like, what are we using this for? Are we using this for anything? And in some instances, yes, it is being used to, for instance, by the police to make sure that recruits are able and willing to work on a Saturday. If they are Seventh-day Adventists, they might not wish to work on a Saturday, and so they wanted to sort of answer that question. But the right question is, are you willing to work on a Saturday? Right, the right question is not, which is not very intrusive to ask that. The right question is not, what is your religion, which can be very intrusive and very personal, and is actually recognized as a type of sensitive personal data. Right. So that's a very important lesson from all of this, I think, and this is something that business owners and public authorities and organizations of all kinds should be thinking about in the coming weeks and months when they think about being compliant with data protection, with the data protection law, is what are we gathering? What are we using it for? Do we need it all? Is it excessive? Those questions are very important. Right.
And the questions of that, I want to come back to the rental car thing and something else, but if I could just ask, if it's pertinent to our discussion, the police or any other entity, employer is asking questions relative to what days you're willing to work. Why not ask if you're willing to work on a Saturday or a Sunday? Just since it's not just religious days, but it's the weekend as we know it. Why not limit it to one? Why not ask all? I mean, and then I have a supplementary, but let me. Would that be okay?
Yeah, sorry, to
just
ask.
To say, listen. I mean, are you willing to work on a Saturday?
Of course.
Are you working on a Sunday?
Of course, and that's much less intrusive than asking. I mean, there's loads. This is just one example.
No, I got
there are many other examples. Yeah. There are examples of buying. In order to buy a plant in a certain place, which I won't mention, they actually ask you for your date of birth.
Yeah.
Because their accounting system requires that to be entered somehow in their system. Yeah. But why would you need to prove your age to buy, a few flowers?
Right.
I mean, so again, that's an example of excessive data gathering. And now it may be that they seek to do future promotions and they would like to have further information about you, and they might be able to sort of categorize you demographically, know your age for that reason, and so on. And that's all fine. And they can ask you, would you like to get further promotional materials for us? And if so, please give us your email or whatever. But just off the bat, there is too often an assumption that as an individual, we have to provide that information. And in fact, in many cases, it is excessive and it's not required.
So from the perspective of the consumer in this retail transaction,
yes.
being informed but also being a little bit assertive and confident. No, I don't want to give you my email, my phone number, my zip code, my whatever that thing is. There are some of us who we automatically give it because we're being asked, we feel obligated, feel we compelled, we have to do it. And then we don't want to cause a scene because I've done it deliberately. No, I don't think you want that. And people in the line, family, friends, other shoppers and the cashier will look at you like, no, I say it politely with a smile, as best a smile I can muster. But there is this pushback.
Yeah.
Now, to what extent is the consumer in charge, or is it one you're subjected to, I asked you for it, so hand it up. Come on now, I want the information.
Well, that's actually precisely the point, is the fact that data protection is a number of rules and a number of, and some of them intricate and some of them very common sense and so on. But it really is about putting you in the driver's seat. It really is about, I think, restoring some of that balance in favor of the individual. Because after all, it's our information. It's your information.
Correct.
So, and to function, to buy things, to do, to get a license to drive a car, or to just to simply function in our society, we do need to give out our personal data.
Right.
I mean, that's just a given. Of course, you can't just sort of live in a cave and never ever give away any personal data. That won't work. No. But the point is that through the particularly digital media, apps and so on, we have grown very accustomed to giving out personal data. And I think this is an attempt, the data protection law in our country, in conjunction with many countries around the world. This is very much becoming a standard approach around the world, even though there are details that vary. So the idea is to put you back in charge, in control of your data.
All right. So let me ask. Sorry, go ahead, Richard.
Yeah, and I think that's a very good point. It certainly is going to be a cultural shift to the way businesses look at how they sort of correspond with the data subject, or how they correspond with the customer. Because when you say, why do you need this information, the person who's giving you the service could get a little offended. So you smile and you say, I'm really sorry, I don't want to give that information if it's not necessary. They might turn around and says, okay, this is our policy. So now the vendor or the business is going to have to start looking at their business model and saying, okay, what were we trying to achieve by asking for this extra information? And I think manufacturers are picking that up. And manufacturers are picking it up in a really good way. So, for example, one of the cards that I have, I can go and purchase something. But if I think that particular vendor might be shady in terms of how they secure and keep information secure, I could give them what you call a virtual card. And I could do my transaction via a virtual card. I can then go online on my phone. And if I think that this particular transaction is suspicious, I can block that transaction. I could see where that transaction was done anywhere in the world, and I can also on the tool I could restrict how often that particular card can be used by the same vendor, because you can have repeat prescriptions, and they say they retain your credentials on their system. Well, I could say, okay, that was a one-off transaction. I then block that. I get rid of that virtual card and I get another one. And manufacturers are doing this. They're understanding that the data is not the vendors. The data belongs to the data subject, and therefore putting the data subject in control of the actions of what vendors are taking is very important.
Right. And maybe we'll go off track a bit, but we can talk about it in relation to purchases and chargebacks and the like. But if I could then just go back to the example with the rental car, an authority like the government agency, like the police, for whatever reason, is asking information. You probably would, with limited or very little resistance, give the information that's being asked. What is your date of birth? What is your telephone number or address or something? If it's a government agency, you probably would provide that without questioning too much. You go to the rental car company. I'll give this example, picked up on where you shared, guide me with it. So you leave in Cayman, you're going elsewhere, you decide to go online, your travel agent, whomever you've utilized, you made all the purchases, you paid in advance, you bought the insurances that you want, your credit card or whatever else you have covers something. You get to the counter with the example that you had. Got to take a break, good cliffhanger. And here's the cliffhanger. You get to the counter, the attendant says to you, we need your card because you need this insurance, right? What do? You told me what you did, and now he's put me off track. So we got to take the break. I got to remember where I was going. This is going to be good. It's going to be epic. All right, that's an example because I think it's real life.
Okay.
But we're going to show how it works. All right, Lee J. Lynn is behind the mics today. So let's go to a break. And when we come back, join us after. Stay tuned.
A caring and community spirit, cherished family and cultural values. These are some of the things that still embodies the Caymanian way of life in the Eastern Districts today. Savannah Pharmacy, your neighborhood pharmacy, located in Countryside Shopping Village, is delighted to offer products and services of real value. Whether it's catering to your family's medical needs or carrying apparel, gifts, and beauty products, Savannah Pharmacy provides you with more than just prescriptions. Remember, they're always just around the corner with everything your family needs and convenient opening hours, including Sundays and holidays. Savannah Pharmacy. For more information, call 946-3336.
For 51 years, Cayman Airways has been connecting the Cayman Islands with the world, welcoming visitors to our shores and taking residents to exciting destinations. To celebrate, Cayman Airways airfares are now on sale for travel this fall. Sale fares start from just $71 CI round trip. Taxes and fees are additional, conditions apply. But hurry, this anniversary sale ends August 10th. Call 949-2311, contact a travel agent, or visit CaymanAirways.com.
There are plenty of reasons to be a Logic customer. There's lightning fast internet connectivity. There's the great overall customer experience. And now you can improve your Wi-Fi connectivity with Logic Boost Wi-Fi for free. With Boost, you can extend your freedom to stream, game, and download seamlessly anywhere in your home, like your patio or your underground lair if you have one. Sign up now for any Logic Bundle package and get free Boost Wi-Fi for a limited time. Visit logic.ky for details.
Did you know that once properly sanitized, some tinned food items may still be safe for consumption after coming in contact with floodwater? In order to properly sanitize these tins, always remove labels and then wash tins in a strong detergent solution using a brush to get rid of excess impurities. Tins must then be immersed in a solution made of 2 tablespoons of chlorine bleach per gallon of water for 10 minutes. Ensure that containers are air dried before opening. For more post-hurricane food safety tips, visit the DEH website at deh.gov.ky.
Talk to Dick.
But I do have some questions.
Talk to Dick.
Cayman Islands' foremost listeners' participation program.
Talk to Dick.
Because there are more questions than answers.
What the public is saying.
Waiting to take your calls right now. Sterling Dwayne Ebanks.
Hey, good afternoon and welcome back. Thanks for joining us. And listen, when you call, you're not going to hear anything other than, DJ Lynn. So he's doing it for us behind the scenes. Thanks very much, Mr. Lynn. He's in the house. In the studio, as we talk about the Cayman Data Protection Law, we certainly will reference the European counterpart, the GDPR. Jan Liebers, the Deputy Ombudsman for Information Rights, together with Richard Cardy, our guest. And I don't believe sufficiently that as a country we're cognizant of the implications or implications of protecting our data. We're doing a great job, I believe, but there's probably more. So I'm glad that we have this discussion. As you reminded us, the 30th of September is when the law comes into full effect and what that would mean, some of the ramifications. But if I could try to go back to what I was thinking of earlier with your example relative to the rental car, and you go to the car, you present your credit card. Sometimes they take a deposit, an additional charge on your card, and they tell you need insurances, and you're not questioning. I'm not only want to speak of the issue relative to potential of them trying to make a buck off of your, compliance, but you feel obligated to do these things and you're not sure what information to share. How does that sort of scenario play into this, or is something different?
Yeah, I think it plays into it in a big way. I think GDPR, as well as the data protection law here in Cayman, is now raising the awareness for data subjects. Mm-hmm. Now data subjects are understanding for the first time that they have rights, the information belongs to them, how they're sharing the information is going to be based on their knowledge of what the law says. And I think the data subject, certainly in my case, when I go and I do give my information, whether it's my credit card or whether it's my name and address, email address, I would say to the vendor, why do you need this information? Mm-hmm. And I would say it nicely, of course, because it doesn't somehow...
You mean on like Jan? I mean, what is he saying?
It doesn't somehow relate to the service that they're providing. But also, this is going to challenge businesses in terms of their business model, because businesses in the past have gathered information for all sorts of reasons. So the idea of being transparent is going to become to the forefront.
Right.
They're asking me for this information. Are they transparent? And telling me why they're asking me for this information.
Fair enough. But respectful law.
I was just going to say, and that ties in again with the principles of the law. And the first principle talks about fairness, and that processing has to be fair and legal. And fairness in the first instance has to do with how the data is gathered, how is it obtained. And in fairness, as part of that process, you should be told at the point when the data is being gathered, you should be essentially notified. You should be told who you're giving it to and what the purpose is for them to have it. So,
correct.
Right. But if I can ask then, the challenge is the business, but isn't it also to an extent, I don't want to use the word owners, but us as the, what do you call it, the data subject?
Data subject, yeah.
Right? So we're the ones that we're given information. It's our data. For us to know our rights, to know what is it that we can and can't do, should and shouldn't do, and what to ask. So we have to have an element of awareness and education information about the whole thing as well.
Absolutely.
Well, one thing you can do, I'm sorry to cut you off, but one thing you can do is visit the Ombudsman website, which I've been waiting to mention that, of course.
Yes,
www.ombudsman, ombudsman.ky, and we have in our data protection section there, we have guidance, and our guidance is actually targeted at 3 different audiences. There's 3 separate streams basically.
Good.
And one is actually targeted towards individuals. So you can go there and you can say, there's a one option for the public. You click on that and you get some guidance about what are your rights, what can you do, what can you ask for, etc., etc.
All right.
And it's imperative that data subjects do this. The notion that now through a judicial process, a data subject could seek compensation from a controller, i.e. a business, that has not complied with the data protection law sort of causes data subjects to smile, because gone be the days when you would hear stories like Yahoo have just had a breach, 500,000 records lost. BA has just had a breach, 300,000 records lost, and nothing was you then hear nothing about it in the coming months. Now data subjects have a right to seek compensation if they feel that their data wasn't kept securely, or their data was used for something other than what it was intended to be used for, and therefore a breach occurred. So it is imperative that data subjects know what their rights are under this law, and the Ombudsman website has good information.
Well, maybe we could talk about some of those rights as well under legislation and the like. And I appreciate this, because this information is making us in a driver's seat. It is our information. We probably will protect other things that are physical and near and dear to us. Are we also recognizing that our information is probably even more valuable? Well, you say data is the new currency, right? All right, the news is just about to be aired. DJ Lynn is going to do something about that, I think. And when we come back, well, more data protection legislation. Stay tuned for Talk Today.
From district to district, moving through the waters to Cayman Brac and Little Cayman. Your station, your voice. All things Cayman, one radio, many people. This is home.
Radio Cayman in the Cayman Islands.
Radio Cayman. Headline. Radio Cayman's newsroom. Headline. These are the biggest stories right now.
Brett Frazier's time of 49.68 in the men's 100-meter freestyle at the 2019 Lima Pan American Games has earned him a B-cut time for the Olympics. Brett will also be in the men's 100-meter free final A tonight at 8:45 p.m. Lauren Hugh has unfortunately not qualified in the finals in the women's 100-meter freestyle with a time of 101.38. Lauren will be swimming tomorrow in the women's 50-meter freestyle. Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi has appeared on state media to defend his highly controversial decision to remove the special status accorded to Kashmir. Mr. Modi said a new era was beginning for the Indian-administered part of the region where hindrances to its development had been lifted. The area had been in lockdown since Sunday night, with mobile, landline and internet networks cut off. Pakistan says the removal of special status breaches international law. U.S. immigration officials have arrested almost 700 people after a series of raids in the state of Mississippi. The coordinated operations targeted workers at 7 agricultural processing plants who allegedly did not have proper documentation. Videos and photos showed agents arriving in buses to question and arrest the people. Some children were taken to a local gym after they came home to find their parents gone. And large cruise ships are to be banned from entering Venice's historic center, the Italian government says. Ships weighing more than 1,000 tons will be rerouted away from certain waterways from September. The move follows an accident in June in which a ship collided with a dock, injuring 5 people. That's a wrap of your headlines. I'm Dion Anglin.
Radio Cayman, the voice of the Cayman Islands. What's happening in your community? News and information, music and more. You can find us. www.radiocayman.gov.ky. Like us on Facebook and follow us on Twitter. Radio Cayman is your choice, your voice for today's biggest news. Radio Cayman. Sometimes things just don't go as planned. That's why you need Contractors All-Risk Insurance from Fidelity Insurance Brokers. Ensure you're covered in the event of property damage and third-party injury or damage claims during your construction projects. And with Fidelity Insurance Brokers, you can be sure you are getting competitive pricing and superior customer service. Call us today for a free quote. Fidelity, we're good for you. The best back-to-school sale is now at Reflections. Buy one, get one half price on all back-to-school shoes. Over 100 styles of your favorite brands. Nike, Adidas, Puma, Reebok, and more. Back-to-school savings on shoes for toddlers, children, teens, and adults. Buy one pair, get the second pair half price. Or buy one pair of shoes and get a backpack half priced. The best back-to-school sale at Reflections. Now located on Shedden Road, across from Napa Auto Parts. Beside Mango Tree. Reflections.
The Miss Cayman Islands Universe Committee is inviting you to our pageant on 17th August, 7 p.m. at the Ritz-Carlton. The committee continues to empower young Caymanian ladies to become role models in the community. So come out and see our 6 beautiful contestants vie for the title of Miss Cayman Islands Universe. The winner will represent us at the Miss Universe pageant. Get your tickets today at Funky Tangs and Sand Angels.
Talk today. But I do have some questions. Talk today.
Cayman Islands' foremost listeners' participation program.
Talk today.
Because there are more questions than answers.
What the public is saying.
Waiting to take your calls right now. Sterling Dwayne Ebanks.
Hey, good afternoon. Welcome back to Talk Today as we talk about Cayman data protection law. And in the studio, Mr. Jan Liebers, the Deputy Ombudsman, the Deputy Information Commissioner. That's probably
Deputy Ombudsman,
yeah, because we changed the term, right?
Oh, yes, absolutely. Yeah, it was changed almost 2 years ago.
Almost 2 years ago?
Yes.
Wow, I was 2 years younger then.
Yes.
Don't think I had any more hair, but anyway. And Mr. Richard Carty, I'm hoping that those listening, not just to be attentive, but maybe start to ask some questions as themselves. How do they protect their rights? Maybe of their vendors, the businesses they deal with. Maybe their own businesses. Maybe it's just a small partnership. Maybe it's a fairly large, substantial company here that deals with many countries. Whoever. Start to think about protecting their own data, the data of their clients, but also looking at the Ombudsman website. Can you give it again just in case someone missed it?
Sure. I keep repeating it.
Yes,
if you look, I can keep repeating it. www.ombudsman, that's ombudsman.ky. So www.ombudsman.ky.
Ombudsman.ky. Good resource that is there, and hopefully we'll access it. If I could then, just one other similar example. We talked earlier about making a personal transaction at the counter, but I've seen this a couple of times. We're online, and we want to maybe navigate the particular site, and it's first something recently, but they used to say you have to accept the terms and conditions of this site and all the other things, and if you don't, then you can't proceed. Now there's also site uses cookies and what that means, but are they the same? Is it different? And if it is, the first one, because many sites, well, Richard, you know what I'm talking about.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. The law now brings into focus that personal information is captured when you go on websites. When you go online, you leave an audit trail. They call it IP address, which is a lot of binary digits, and therefore is capturing information about the data subject. And remember, personal identifiable information is any information about a living person that could be used to identify that person. So when you're online and you're surfing websites, etc., now companies need to be cognizant of the fact that they're capturing personal information via IP addresses, etc., and they need to make sure that they inform the data subject that this information is being captured and what they intend to do with it. So now a lot of websites, you'll get a screen pop up and says, we need cookies. We operate cookies in order to give you the best performance. And then you might have something says, I consent or I agree, or something that says, go away. You say no. I've seen some websites where you've clicked on it and navigating the website is not easy. I've seen websites where you try to read it and it's just so complicated and you don't know what they're saying. And again, that's not compliance. They need to make sure that these statements, privacy notices, are fairly transparent, fairly easy to follow, used in very layman terms, so the person who's reading it could understand what is being said, particularly when the company is trying to offer a service.
So we should know then they're collecting information.
Yes.
And what information they're collecting.
Correct. And why.
And why.
And what they intend to do with it.
So we should know that.
We should know that.
Okay. I don't feel so bad now when you say that you start to read this thing and it's small.
Yeah.
It's complicated.
Yeah.
It's lengthy.
Correct.
And all I want to know is, well, do you have my chocolate chip cookies on order? I don't need it, right? But you accept cookies. I do too. And I'm making chocolate. But they're asking these things. So, Mr. Liebers, from that perspective then, two things. Locally based company, or as we look at things around the globe, who's going to enforce to make sure that, as Mr. Carter shared, the companies are compliant? This thing that they're saying that they're doing is as simple as he said. Hey, we're collecting it. This is what we're collecting. This is why we're collecting. This is what we're going to do with it. I mean, that if you told me that, I would at least be able to know. So
yes,
first question.
And this is an area that I think there has to be further growth or further development. That is to say, businesses operate internationally, but legislation is national. And there's a mismatch in that sense. And that's why you find certain legislation like GDPR and also to some extent our own DPL having some extra jurisdictional aspect, meaning that it doesn't only capture, perhaps data controllers, companies that are actually physically doing the processing here in Cayman, But there are some that may be caught in different ways. Obviously, the ones that are operating here are the ones that are clearly defined as being within the law. But the law actually provides for a data controller that is not in Cayman, but where the data is being processed in Cayman. So if it's a company from the USA, but they do some of their data processing in Cayman, the law still applies to them.
Okay, but that's processing here, right? So if we were, let's use the US example, we're online, and only because it's summer and we're traveling, so let's say we're going off to the US and we went to a hotel. We went straight to the hotel site, we're going to stay there for X time, we want this room. Now, that is being done elsewhere. No physical processing, but I'm doing the transaction right here in my living room, sitting on my couch and doing my stuff. Does the law apply to them? I mean, I'm giving the information physically sitting in the Cayman, but they have no back office here, they have nothing.
Well, it might be that the law that would be, first of all, a West law in that case, or wherever it is that the hotel is located. If the hotel abroad is actively seeking clients in Cayman, it may very well be that our law would apply to that.
And the reason why I'm asking, not to belabor it, but maybe to emphasize how difficult it can be, perhaps, in terms of cross-border transactions. So hotel company is owned by some entity that, through its corporate structuring and tax measures, is set up to be owned by this, by that, by the next thing, and the next thing you know, there are multiple jurisdictions that are involved. Physical plant is in one location, back office in somewhere else. Customers are making a request for information, whether in Cayman or Canada or Cuba. Does that make it any more challenging for us?
I think the key word there is if a business is processing the data subject information of residents or people that live in Cayman, or if they're offering goods and services. So it's a deliberate act.
Yeah.
When a business is deliberately doing something, the authorities here would say, okay, that quantifies or that qualifies as a processing of data subject information here. Wow. I think you're going to always have people going online and going to websites and shopping and doing all sorts of things. There would be always gray areas, so to speak, and we see that in GDPR. But when there is a deliberate intent to offer services and goods and services here in Cayman and process data subject information here in Cayman, then that entity needs to comply with the DPL.
Thanks. Well, we do have a caller online, and if anybody is brave enough to face the ring, dial the phones and hear the voice of DJ Lynn answering, hey, 949-8037, you could be brave. Jan Lieber's Richard Cardi, our guest. Hey, good afternoon. You're on Talk Today.
Good afternoon.
How are you, my friend? How was the day treating you?
Very thankful.
Oh, man, amen to that. Glad to hear.
Yeah, very thankful compared to what's going on in some places in the world, like Venezuela.
Yeah, sadly, there are a lot of things around the world, some not that far away, that we have to wonder about.
Yes. And hope and pray that Cayman will never get that way.
Well, we look at Venezuela, we look at El Paso or California or any other sometimes places that we travel to.
Yes, your guests there today, they are with the Ombudsman Office.
Okay, if I wasn't clear, Mr. Jan Liebers is the Deputy Ombudsman. Mr. Cardi, Richard Cardi, is with the private BDO company. I can say it, okay, so he's with BDO. That's a private financial services provider?
Yes, correct.
Yeah, so he is a risk... you tell us.
Yes, I'm Richard Carty. I'm here from BDO, and we provide risk advisory services to clients, very similar to what most of the financial services companies here do, but we specifically target risk advisory services. So data privacy, data protection is one of those type of services that we offer in terms of helping clients navigate the legislation.
Okay?
Mm-hmm.
And the other gentleman is Deputy Ombudsman?
Yes, sir, Mr. Jan Liebers. I think he acted in the capacity from time to time.
Yeah, I acted as information commissioner when the office was still separate from the office of the complaints commissioner.
Right.
And now we're joined up as one office,
Mm-hmm.
dealing with a number of different subjects, including maladministration complaints by the public against the police, whistleblowing, freedom of information, and soon also data protection.
Okay. Well, I have a question for the Ombudsman.
The Deputy Ombudsman.
Okay.
Deputy Ombudsman.
Yes.
Okay, I will try and answer.
Okay. If we have Caymanians who apply for work and they're qualified or they're capable of being trained to qualify, but yet instead of hiring the Caymanian, the company hires someone on a work permit. Is that Caymanian able to come to you all and show you all that they're qualified to get this work? And they have been turned down by the company that they were trying to get to hire them. They were turned down for whatever reason the company came up with.
Mm-hmm.
Are they able to come to you all and complain and showing that the company treated them unfairly?
Mm-hmm.
What procedure would you all take after that?
Well, the complaint side of our office, which is not where I work on the information side, but the complaint side, by and large, has to do either specifically with the RCIPS, the police, or with maladministration by government entities. So if this is a complaint about or an issue about a private company that has certain hiring practices and so on, unless it has a specific connection with a public authority doing its job, I'm not sure that that's something our office could hear. However, there's nothing to stop you from either calling or sending a quick email. And again, you can find the contact details on our website, www.ombudsman.ky. Send a quick message or send a quick call, and our staff that deal with maladministration complaints will be able to answer that question better than I can. Okay?
Well, I have known of companies, and I'm pretty sure it's going on right now, that hire people on work permits, and the people are paying for their own work permits. The people are paying all of their health insurance. The people are not being paid for sick leave. They're not being paid for vacation. But they're afraid to talk. And that's why some of these companies are not hiring Caymanians. And it happened to me. The company was not paying the way that they were supposed to be paying when it came to my health insurance. I was paying for all my health insurance. I told them I was not able to afford to do it. They said, well, everybody else is paying all their health insurance. And if I don't do so, I'm going to spoil it for everybody else, which the majority of them were on work permits, so they could not say anything. But I saved all my receipts. I saved all my receipts to show where they took out of my pay to pay for all my health insurance instead of them paying for half. And after my work was completed, I took all my receipts to the labor board, and I collected every 1 cent that they took back from me.
Right.
But the people on work permits are afraid to do this.
Well, I hear you, and if I might add somewhat, I mean, I commend you for at least having the courage to do that. The Health Insurance Commission is there, and as you recognize, the law does require the employer to pay, half of that employee's basic standard insurance coverage. So maybe a chat with the Health Insurance Commission, as well as the new workplace opportunities residents that came on office, to sort of, I'm sure apprise them of allegations that they may hear more frequently than we would care. Somebody has to be willing to stand up. Perhaps you are that courageous soul that, will be that voice for those who seemingly, as you share, don't have that foot to stand on as yet.
Mm-hmm. Well, I just have this last to say, Dwayne.
Mm-hmm.
I'm hoping that the Ombudsman office is somewhere that people can go and get help. Not just saying that they're there to help people, but aren't serious about helping people. I hope they're very serious about the work that they have in helping people, because it's very unfair for a Caymanian not to be able to get work in their own country.
Right. I hear you. If I could just ask, so maybe it'll help me at least. I don't know if anybody else. What is your perception of what the Ombudsman's office does, its responsibilities, its remit?
Well, one of those is, if I find a police officer to be a troublemaker, or if I find a police officer to be a person who harasses people, and I go to the Ombudsman's office and make a complaint on that officer, I'm hoping that the Ombudsman's office will take it seriously about these complaints.
Okay.
And we do.
And see to it that that officer is not able to continue doing what he is or she is doing.
Right. So complaints against the police, what else is your perception that they do?
Well, for example, if I have, say, a case against the government in court, and I saw every right where I was supposed to win that case, and for whatever reason, the court went in favor of the government, instead of fairly making the ruling that what I was saying was correct, the court met on the side of the government and practically did not give me my rights when it comes to justice. And I went to the Ombudsman's office and made a complaint about the ruling that the court made, which was unfair. And I went to the Ombudsman's office. I'm hoping that they would be able to go to the courts or wherever you all need to go to see that whatever ruling the judge made on behalf in favor of the government, when they shouldn't have done so, that the Ombudsman's office will see to it that this is able to go back to court and reviewed and to prove that the court should have been in favor of me.
Okay.
Things such as that.
All right. Okay. Well, that's the perception.
Well, I just want to quickly say that we at the first of all, at the office of the Ombudsman, we do take our work very, very seriously, and we do help people every single day. That doesn't mean that all cases are always resolved in favor of the complainant. But we do take each complaint and every and if it's an FOI matter, an FOI appeal, and so on, very seriously. So that's a given. What we can't do is go sort of above the courts and second guess court decisions. We don't have any powers in that regard at all. So that's not something that we would be able to do.
And I appreciate you the caller sharing and willingly giving a perception, because that could be, even though it's a little bit off topic, I think it's part of information, we have this perception of what something it does or should be doing, and that lack of understanding or information, or not quite up to par with what it does, could guide us, and sometimes, maybe.
Yeah, and one connection with data protection perhaps is the fact that individuals have certain rights under the data protection law, and one of those is to access your own personal data. And if you feel that you are wronged, maybe the first step towards resolving that is to see what information you can gather on your own case, on your own situation, how you were treated. Now the gentleman that's calling, says he has kept all the receipts and all of that, so maybe he doesn't need anything further. But if he did not have that data, that's the kind of data that he that would relate to him, that would be his personal data that he would be able to request under data protection, and that goes both. Which is sort of already in place under FOI in the public sector, but this with the data protection law now also will cover the private sector. So you can go and not until the law commences, the 30th of September, but you can you have the right to access your own personal data, and that might be very helpful for people who feel that they are perhaps wronged or
okay. So can I just to make sure I emphasize. Once the law is effective, we can go to the private sector or banks, for instance. We want to know what information you have on me, and they'll have a process. You provide identification or something, and they're supposed to provide you with this information.
Yeah, so there's a couple of different things that you're entitled to. Sorry, I'm doing a lot of talking here now.
That's okay. Richard, that's okay.
But there's a couple of different types of things that you can request. First of all, you are entitled to a copy of the information. But you are also, and maybe in many cases you may not need that. What you may need is something more about how is the information used. And so you're under the law, you're actually entitled to what I guess you could call metadata, so the data about the data. So how is it used? Who is it shared with? Is it being transferred abroad? Is it, how is it protected, etc., etc.? Those are questions as well that are in the law that you can request. So it's not necessarily just a copy. And maybe in some cases you may not wish to have a copy. You may just want to know certain other facts about how the data is being used.
Okay, I know we can look at the law, and maybe if you have it at your right recall, timeline. We know under FOI there's a timeline that information needs to be provided or responses. In this instance, you go to the private sector entity. Is there a timeline on which they must get it back to you?
Yes. They would, entities should have a process in place where they could identify the data subject information within 30 days.
Similar to the FOI.
Yeah, right. they that time could be extended, and there's a number of things that the companies could say why they need an extension of that time. So, for example, if a company wanted, if a data subject says, okay, I want you to show me all the information you have about me, the company goes off, does the analysis, and says, well, this is going to be pretty difficult. There's stuff in archives, there's stuff, that's backed up, etc. Stuff on multiple systems. They could request an extension of that time. But, this is a very important part of the process, and I say to companies out there that they must put in place a subject access request process. So if a data subject says, can you show me everything you got about me? They could actually go to their systems and pull off this information. If they can't, then it's going to be pretty difficult.
Cost. So the company says, hey, I can give this to you, but it's going to cost a lot of money.
Yeah, there's in principle, the information has to be provided for free.
Yeah.
But there are exceptional circumstances when a fee can be charged, and that is not according to a specific schedule of fees or something. That is according to what is reasonable under those circumstances. But as a matter of principle, the expectation is that most of these requests will be filled without any charge. Okay. And again, that goes back to the information being really in the hands of the person whose information it is in the first place. I mean, all the company's doing is really giving something back that is already really owned by the person who's asking.
Now, two things in that, if I may ask additionally. Let's sort of pick on banks. I don't mean to, but banks should be the easiest of all the examples because we engage with our banks, So you go into the bank, you fill out some sort of form with information on it.
Yeah.
Whether you're applying for a credit facility or whatever it is. And there's notations on the form. The bank has, for bank use only bank officials, there are these notations, whatever they are. When you get that data, those notations should be there, can be there, must be there.
Well, when you do a subject access request, you have to be very careful that when you give the information to the data subject, it doesn't contain any other information other than the data subject information. So what I have seen is a lot of companies deduct other pieces of information that is not relevant to that data subject.
Okay, well, that's subjective somewhat. I mean,
well, yes, but remember how data is hosted and stored on systems. Actually, some systems you can't actually do it quite easily.
Right.
This is back to the question whereby when you say, there might be a charge. This is one of them, system limitation, and obviously extracting that information. Another important point is that when you extract the information, that you don't share another data subject information with the person who's requesting about their information.
Right. I understand, and yes. I don't want to belabor. I was just thinking through a number of things where you receive information, right? You've asked for it; it's been given voluntarily. And I think the bank is a good example.
Yes.
And then the person at the bank, the loans officer, let's just make that one easy and make some notations based on some analysis and writes and says and comments and does stuff there. And that forms and informs the decision, the discussion, the perception, that relationship.
Yeah.
Yep.
And that is information. And now that's information that is relevant to that person who provided it, is it not? And should be part of what? Oh, so this is what you think of me, huh? I mean,
yeah. So in the law, it's in the law actually the definition of personal data is, and I'm going to paraphrase, but is basically information that allows the identification of a person directly or indirectly. So it could be a name or it could be some sort of number associated with that person, for instance. But it also includes opinions and intentions. So if my opinion about you is X, then that actually is your personal data.
Right. Yeah. So when it's being redacted, so that's what I'm thinking of. It comes back to this could be another discussion.
And one point that I just don't want to forget to mention is, of course, that there will be requests made, there will be timelines met and not met, and there will be people who say, well, surely you must have more on me or whatever. There will be disputes, there will be questions, and the point is that people have the right to complain to the ombudsman, and we are going to be ready to hear those complaints and to resolve those, to investigate those and resolve those.
All right. So are you sorry, Richard? Go ahead.
And in the event, and that's a very important point, because the companies could say, okay, we just have this information about you. We don't have anything else, and they could say, here you go. If that particular company is breached and they have other information about you, and that information is discovered when the ombudsman do their investigation, then that data subject again would have the right to seek compensation because they were given false information. So companies got to really think carefully about their process in terms of how they identify personal information and what they're saying to data subjects that they're doing, because it has to be transparent.
Well, Mr. Lin, are we just checking to see if we are operated for the next guest, but we'll get in a second. I just want to ask maybe the final question on that, and then ask about fines and consequences, implications. The bank is a good example, but for an individual who is thinking, well, I wonder who else have information on me. Can that person just go around all the businesses? Do you need to have a reason to go to a business and say, what information do you have on me? Or you can just show up and say, you know what, I think I may have done a transaction with you 500 years ago. I mean, do you need to have some sort of nexus?
That's a very good question. Again, it goes back to this thing about subject access request process in place, because one of the first things that a business needs to do when they get one of these requests is investigate whether this is a legitimate person or someone just wasting time. And they'll be able to do that if they have this process in place and determine that this is a legitimate request, it has validity, and therefore we need to execute it from the outset.
So, but if you wanted as an individual, so you presented yourself and you went to a company, and I just want to know what you have on me, and they identify it's you, you're legitimate. They have to check it out. It doesn't matter whether or not you knowingly done business with them. You think you may have. You just want to know for sure.
Yeah. In most cases, you will know, of course. Because you know where you shop or who you do business with.
Okay. Yeah. Mr. Lynn, is the other guest ready? We're taking a break. What are we doing? I see. I'm like in a cell here and I can't see anything. And no offense to Lynn, but Susan is a much better picture to look at. Anyway, we're going to pause. We're going to take a quick break.
Sure.
If he allows us, when we come back, there'll be a microphone, couple of quick seconds more, which we'll take a call, and then we'll get on with our business. Okay. Stay tuned for Talk Today.
When you need stability, think Business of the Year.
Considering a new career opportunity, think Best Place to Work.
When dependability matters, think Outstanding Workforce.
In need of a reliable financial partner, think Bank of the Year.
When you seek excellence, think Cayman National.
No matter how many accomplishments we achieve, we always set the bar higher. That's why we are the most awarded bank in Cayman, and we are proud to be your
2018 Bank of the Year.
If your business is over here, but your customers are over here, adding more yellow to your business will bring you both right here. With everyone searching yellows, print, online, and mobile app, getting your business noticed is easier than ever. Book your consultation today at findyellow.com.
The 2020 Yellow Directory is closing soon. Last chance. Don't miss out. Call now to sign up or renew today. 949-7027. That's 949-7027. Yellow. We know Cayman.
Support our port. Support our tourism.
Did you know in the 15 years that we've been discussing the berthing facility, our competitors have pressed on with construction and now welcome the larger ships that pass us by? It's time we build our piers.
Looking forward, looking bright.
Learn more and spread the word.
Support our port, support our tourism.
The Tuesday and Thursday edition of The Business Buzz is brought to you by Cayman Medical Supplies, providing quality pharmaceuticals, medical supplies, and consumer products to healthcare providers, retailers, and ultimately the patients at a reasonable rate in a friendly, caring, and timely manner. Cayman Medical Supplies is located at number 93 Smith Road, Windward Center. Telephone 949-6211.
Talk today. But I do have some questions. Talk today.
Cayman Islands' foremost listeners' participation program.
Talk today.
Because there are more questions than answers.
What the public is saying.
Waiting to take your calls right now. Sterling Dwayne Ebanks.
Hey, good afternoon. Welcome back to Talk Today. Thanks for joining us, and I trust that you find this conversation beneficial. We do have a caller and in the phones waiting for us. Jan Liebers, Richard Carter, our guest. Hey, good afternoon. You're on Talk Today.
Hello, good afternoon.
Good afternoon, sir. How are you?
I couldn't be better, thanks.
Thank God, man. Glad to hear. All right.
Interesting subject, interesting people, very hard-working people.
Yes, sir.
But something that needs to be paid attention to is the blatant disobedience of some entities in government that withhold information. And the law provides in Section 55 for action to be taken against these people when they withhold information, delay information, and make the freedom of information people as well as the people that requested information wait and wait and wait and wait, sometimes years before you get the information that should be at hand. One thing I'd like to find out, when are they going to start prosecuting some of these people for the violations of Section 55? That's question number one.
Mm-hmm.
Question number two is there are certain things that are required to be recorded under the archive law. The quality of minutes, the quality of records, and in various sensitive situations, there are no records existing, and this has been going on for a long time. I can think of two that right now, which stand out. One is the purchase of the helicopter, the first helicopter, no minutes kept of those meetings. the bailout of Cayman National Bank for over $100 million after Hurricane Ivan. No minutes kept of those meetings. And since then, there have been other instances where certain boards, the actions and decisions, there's no records in existence for what happened, but yet still, they're not taking anybody to court for these violations under the archive law and under the Freedom of Information law. And then the improper way some decisions are made without recording the minutes. And all of these things really, in an open, transparent, democratic society, should be published anyway. People shouldn't have to ask for these things. They should be published and on the entity's website. And that was the intent of freedom of information when it came in. But that has been a very slow, painful process, and only a few of the entities do it. So, a couple of things that I asked there, I'd like answers on. One, when are they going to use the law the way it should be used, Section 55, the archives law, and when is really things going to start to be published? And the last one is the quality of minutes and what is actually recorded. Have a wonderful day, people that are there, and glad to hear you come on more often.
Thank you, sir. Thank you.
Well, everybody's looking at me. I better answer. Section 55 requires that where there is an intentional obstruction or an intentional destruction of records that are requested under the FOI law, that's actually recognized as an offense, a criminal offense, and that would then be passed on to the DPP and to the RCIPS for investigation. And over the last few years, I know I personally have sent one case to DPP where I thought it was a blatant intentional obstruction that was taking place. But yes, that doesn't happen very often, and it's quite difficult to establish whether something is done intentionally or not.
Right.
So that's actually difficult to prove. I do agree with the caller that it is very often taking way too long for records to be disclosed or even to be created, and that there are records that are not being created when they should be, and you're correct, that is under the National Archive and Public Records Law. One thing the Ombudsman can do is make recommendations on record-keeping issues, but the Ombudsman doesn't have any powers to require that a record or records be created in the first place. So we are dealing with whatever records are held at the time the request is made, but we can't say you ought to also create X, Y, and Z, even though perhaps that may be very blatantly obvious. We don't actually have any powers to say that. And under the National Archive and Public Records Law, the audit function is in the hands of the Auditor General, actually. So whether the National Archive and Public Records Law is properly applied, in other words, are people creating the records that they should be creating, that is a question for audit by the Auditor General, not by the Ombudsman. So that's what I would say on that.
All right. Well, I certainly want to, as we close out, invite you individually, collectively, and certainly to invite the discussion, so more, not only as the legislation comes into effect, but after, so that we become more familiar with it. But Richard, any sort of final thoughts you may want to share with us?
Yes. This particular piece of legislation is changing the game in terms of how vendors, how businesses should look after personal information. There is at least an expectation now that if a data subject comes up to you and give you information, that data subject expect that you're keeping that information safe, you're doing the right sort of things with that information. So now businesses are going to rethink in terms of their business model, whether that business model fits and certainly is in line with the data subject's expectation. I think gone be the days, and we are seeing lots of fines out there in the marketplace against companies who are doing all sorts of things with personal data, and these fines are quite hefty fines. So it's serious business, and I think businesses are going to have to really take a hard look at, hang on a second, we are now asking data subject to give us information. Do we really need to keep this? Do we really need this information in order to transact that particular point, that particular activity? And we can't just ask for information for the sake of asking for it because we might think, okay, we could use this in the future. Those days are gone.
All right. Well, thanks very much. And Jan, thanks again. If you wish to share any other thoughts, I'll certainly ask to remind us of the website at least.
Again?
Yeah, why not? 3 times the charm, huh?
Okay, www.ombudsman.ky for all your answers.
There you go.
Yes.
Hey, thanks very much, all right?
Thank you.
And when we come back, the excellent company of Mr. Ezra Miller, Northside's MLA, so gracious in yielding some of his time to us. So stay tuned for Talk Today.
Congratulations, it's a boy.
During the greatest events of your life, whether or not you have the right health insurance coverage should be the last thing on your mind. That's why at Fidelity Health, we are committed to helping you get matched with the right plan to suit you and your family. We offer a range of plans to suit your budget, plus access to a network of quality care throughout the Caribbean and the USA. You can relax and enjoy life's greatest moments when you are covered with Fidelity Health. Call us today at 949-7822 for a free quote.
Steve Higgins Productions, in association with the Lions Club of Tropical Gardens,
the Cayman Islands Cancer Society,
and the De Silva Family Trust presents
Music of the Hearts, a fantastic evening of excellent music presented by Delia Winter,
April Marr,
and Steve Higgins at the Marriott Beach Resort, 7 Mile Beach, Sunday, September 1st, 2019 at 6 p.m. Sponsored by
Harney's,
Applebee,
SMP,
NCB Capital Markets,
Jamaica Tourist Board,
and Radio Cayman. Tickets $25.
Available at Funky Tanks,
Super Stitch, or any member of the Lions Club of Tropical Gardens, or call
925-9134.
That's 925-9134. Proceeds will go towards the Cayman Islands Cancer Society and the Lions Club of Tropical Gardens. That's Steve Higgins and Friends in Music of the Heart. Sunday, September 1st at the Marriott Beach Resort. Don't miss it!
Radio Cayman's premier health show,
For the Health of It, with Tara Bush,
is brought to you on Saturdays at 9:30 a.m. and Wednesdays at 7 p.m. on 89.9 and 93.9 FM. Proudly brought to you by the Cayman Islands Civil Service Association. For more information on how you can become a member or the benefits of the CICSA, please visit www.cicsa.ky. For your convenience, the CICSA offices are open on Mondays from 9 to 12 p.m. and Thursdays from 1 to 4 p.m.
For the Health of It, with Tara Bush.
The Breeze Fusion is back Saturday, November 2nd.
Bigger and better.
Now featuring a 5K walk run and a 10K run for half marathon trainers. Join the fun and help raise funds for the Central Scranton Park and the NCVO. Save the date or register now at CaymanActive.com or at Radio Cayman Studios. Registration is only $15 if registered by September 30th. And all early registrants enter to win a Cayman Airways voucher.
The Breeze Fusion 5K, 10K walk run.
Saturday, November 2nd.
Talk today. But I do have some questions. Talk today.
Cayman Islands' foremost listeners' participation program.
Talk today.
Because there are more questions than answers.
What the public is saying.
Waiting to take your calls right now. Sterling Dwayne Ebanks.
Hey, good afternoon and welcome back. Thanks again for joining us. And as we welcome Northside's MLA, Mr. Ezra Miller, if you don't mind me saying again how gracious you are, and thank you for yielding some of your time. We're talking about data protection, and it can be a subject that some would say, oh, geez, data protection. But it was very important, and the last call, I think, was not only succinct, but he made it so that we understand how important information is. But thank you, sir, and I guess That probably caused you to wait almost, 50 minutes extra? You were on time.
It gave me the opportunity. Well, I don't subscribe to this thing about came on time being late, and I'm a sea captain's son. Seconds count.
Yeah. The appointment is for 1:30. The gentleman's out there for almost an hour.
I respect other people's time, and I ask you to respect mine. If we have a 1 o'clock appointment, you don't show up by 1:15. How's it going?
Yeah, well, you were here long before 1:30, long before 1:15, and I want to say that to say that there are things that I find offensive when people talk about came on time. I don't know that, you see, because my father just going fishing.
Yeah,
just a fishing trip. Okay, boys, we're going fishing. My mama said to us one time, you never forget. Daddy going out to get the boat ready. Not quite 7 o'clock yet. He could be back. You boys be ready.
If you're not ready, he going to leave you?
Man, he came through the front door and through the back. Next thing I see, bucket and father through the brass piece. He left us.
Yeah. No, time is time. And listen, as we all know, the thing about time, what's behind you? No good to you.
No good to you, boy. That's it, man.
So use it wisely.
And I was young. I learned a lesson. We chase after him, boy. But it's just how it is.
That's how it should be. I try to raise my children the same way, man. Respect other people. And if you get back 10% or 20% of the respect that you give, you're lucky.
Well, if you don't give, you won't get, right?
Absolutely.
With everything.
Absolutely.
But thank you for giving your time, and as we have a chance to discuss. Certainly got a number of things to ask you, but want to be guided by you first and be respectful.
As I said, I took a break from the talk shows May and June, and then I got caught up in my father's passing, so I didn't do anything in July either. Because I didn't want to get in a I said, she said, they said, we said, with the members of the opposition who unceremoniously threw me out as their leader. But, as my grandma used to tell me, not every disappointment is a misfortune. And boy, you have no idea the relief of getting rid of that negative environment that I was operating in. Because that was a rough 2 years. Trying to get them motivated to do something positive. It was just almost tragic, right? But I believe I managed to set a standard that other people who aspire to that position will know how to rise up to, and that was the whole point.
Well, we certainly will get a chance to speak to the official opposition as time.
And I don't have, like I say, it was 2 years. I'm not ashamed. I make no apologies for the things that I did while I was leader of the opposition. I gave it my all. I worked hard for the group, and all I have to say about the various stories that they're telling is that when you have to explain the explanation for the statement that you made, most people know what those four things are, and it begins with a L and ends with S.
Mr. Miller.
I have no desire to get in a discussion about anything they said.
Right.
I want to move on. And people were, some people are saying, well, Ezra, what you've been doing? Well, I've been doing what Ezra has always done, and that is look out for my people. I took a couple of days vacation, and I came back on Tuesday and went down to the alley and picked up all of my bills for the meeting starting on Wednesday. And I paid attention to the financial laws that were being amended, but most of that is driven by external forces, so not much you can do about that if you want to remain in the business. But the one that jumped out at me was the public lands law amendment to the public lands law bill. And when I saw that they basically wanted to give themselves the opportunity to appoint permanent residents, i.e. non-Caymanians, to the Public Lands Commission, which was deliberately set up by Mr. Kurt Tibbetts to administer all of our public lands, i.e. public beaches, public right-of-ways, parks, etc., etc. I couldn't allow that. So I sought permission from the Speaker, which he granted, to waive the 2 days required notice of amendments, and I filed an amendment to remove the definition of permanent residents from the bill and to restructure the makeup of the Public Lands Commission to say 6 Caymanians, one of whom shall be from Georgetown, West Bay, Bordentown, Northside, East End, Camp Raglan, Cayman. And the government accepted it, so that's what the commission is made up for.
All right.
So that's what I've been doing. And outside of that, I have been working on to setting up the political party that I decided that I thought the country need as leader of the opposition, an alternative to the fusion of the two parties and the melting pot that they have created for the next election. And things have been progressing fairly well. I had a first meeting with I think it was 27 or 28 people. And we set up 2 committees, one to look at drafting a constitution. We discussed the name. You know, I had proposed that it be called the Cayman Islands People's Alliance. They said, listen, you're about honesty and integrity, let's tell the truth. It's a political party. So we changed the name to the Cayman Islands People's Party, and we will trade as People's Party. So that was settled, and then the 2 committees met, one to draft a constitution, one to look at our vision and aims and finalize that. And we got that done, and we met first Thursday in this month, and we've now sent it out to the wider membership and other people outside of that group to look at the constitution, and hopefully we'll get that approved in September, and then we can move on to setting the party up. And what we're trying to put in place is a organization that will facilitate public participation in governance. So the engine that will drive the party is not the party leader and a few members in the Legislative Assembly. The engines are going to be the 19 electoral district committees. Mm-hmm. So we're going to have the Constitution proposes to have an electoral district committee in each district, to which members will subscribe from that constituency. If you don't live in that constituency, the Constitution does not allow you to hold office on the committee. The executive is chairman, 2 deputy chairman, secretary, treasurer, 3 directors. So if you don't live in that electoral district, you can't hold either of those posts. You can be a member if you live in another district, right? But you can't hold any office. If you want to be a candidate, you don't have to live in a district because the Constitution allows that. So we have to follow the Constitution. Right. But you have to be proposed by 10 registered members in that electoral district.
As opposed to now on the election.
As opposed to now where the politicians get together and decide, well, I'd like to run Sterling in West Bay Central. And the people
thanks. Which one Central again?
Right.
I didn't even know.
Well, let me keep it at home and say that I want to run Sterling in Northside. And then you go to Northside, so. the group goes into Northside and sets up a party and provides whatever they do and try to get the person elected. Yeah. I want this to be a grassroots-driven process, so that you have to get the members in your constituency, right, who are members of the party, to endorse you and propose you for election. If more than one candidate, more than one person applies to be the adopted candidate for that constituency, then they have to have a primary. A runoff.
Okay.
It's all elected. There's no the leader coming in or the party chairman coming in and saying, okay, I prefer Joe over John. Mm-hmm. Has to be a runoff. It says that there has to be a meeting where each is allowed to make speeches and campaign and say, this is what I would do. Then the membership in that electoral district and only in that electoral district selects a person.
Okay, because they're the ones who will be voting for
Absolutely.
that. Okay.
And they're the ones who have to keep the candidate. You see, here's my experience in politics in Cayman. And I've always operated different from the average politician in Cayman. But it's easy to go out and get people to get elected. It's a lot more difficult to keep those same people interested and involved in the political process after the election. Mm-hmm. Rather than believe, well, okay, as I had to get elected, go do your job, right? But I believe that what I want to see is a political organization that fosters, facilitates, encourages, demands your continued participation, which is why I set up the Northside District Council. I didn't set that up because it was a requirement in a constitution, because I wanted people to continue to be involved in the process and to be my advisors. Because, as you know, you heard me say many times, I really believe that the people that I represent in Legislative Assembly have an inherent right to be party to, or at least the opportunity to be party to any decision I make on their behalf. So that is the foundation of the party. That's where the membership will come from. Each of those electoral district committees will then send 3 people from that electoral district to form a party council. Because you have to have somebody that coordinates this island-wide, right? That's called a party council. Now, those 3 people that they send to the party council is the chairman of the electoral district committee, a member from the public, not another officer, and the adopted candidate or elected representative. So the central party council is going to be made up of 57 people, plus we allowed we proposed in the Constitution to allow up to 5 honorary members of that council, where we can invite some of the seasoned and politicians who are not necessarily involved in the process, but we need their guidance and we need their input. We need their brain power and we need their experience. So that 6 to 2 people is the people who will run who will coordinate all of the activities of the party.
Right. Now, we see this arrangement in this administration, we saw it previously, of this thing they call a caucus.
Yeah.
I'd like to talk more about how...
Well, the caucus will come, and I'll get to that in a minute.
Okay, yeah.
Now, that party council also elects an executive. That executive is made up of a chairman, 2 deputy chairmen, secretary, treasurer, and 3 directors. Now, the Constitution puts in checks and balances. You can't be the chairman of the North Side Electoral District Committee and the chairman of the party. So nobody who's an officer at the electoral district level can hold office in that central council. So that automatically, nor can any politician, any adopted candidate. Right? So that automatically means that that executive is going to come from the public members. So we're trying to spread the authority and make it more effective, so that no one can simply overpower because I happen to be chairman in two places. Now, of those members so we will have 19 adopted candidates. You become an adopted candidate, as I said earlier, by getting 10 people in that constituent to propose you. You have to, the electoral district committee then has to send that to the campaign committee for vetting as to suitability, because we want to make sure that these people are honest, integrity, have good character, have Caymanian at heart, etc., etc. So, and once you're approved by the campaign committee, then if you're the only one, you would be automatically adopted. If there's more than one, there's a runoff, right? So the party at all time should have 19 adopted candidates, 1 in each electoral district. Now, not everybody is likely to win the election. It's not likely that we will win 19 seats, right? So the legislative group, right, is the actual adopted candidates who are sitting in the Legislative Assembly, who are successful in the election, right? Now, from that legislative group, the party council, not the legislative group, elects a leader, right, who adopts the title of party leader in the Legislative Assembly in order to fulfill our constitutional requirements, where the party leader becomes a premier if you get the majority of the seats, or becomes a leader of opposition if you're in a minority position, right? But that person don't hold no office in the administration of the party, where all of the policies and stuff are set, right? So that executive includes the party leader and the chairman of the Young Cayman Islands People's Party.
Okay.
So and the caucus, they can meet and to discuss what's coming for the Legislative Assembly, but they must bring it to the party council, right? And the party council must take it down to the each electoral district committee for their input and come back, and then consensus is made before it goes.
Uh-huh.
And that will insist that there are some changes to the way we make laws now. Right now we can go down to the LA and make a law in one day.
Mhm.
First reading, second reading, debate, committee, and third reading, final thing.
Right.
If I have any say in the next government, and in a leadership position in the government, the Legislative Assembly is going to be meeting at least once a month.
Right.
So I would like to see us drag out that process down there. Maybe 1 month we'll have the first reading, so the public is aware of it. The press can pick it up. So you can't do nothing behind closed doors anymore, right?
Mm-hmm.
Next month we do the second reading debate, right? The third month we do the committee stage, and the fourth month we finalize it.
Mr. Miller, respectfully, I recognize that we have to go to our news, but when we come back, we'll continue discussion.
Yeah.
MLA, Northside's MLA, Mr. Ezra Miller is our guest. Stay tuned for Talk Today.
Satisfaction is guaranteed 24 hours a day, whether it's music or information.
From Grand Cayman to Cayman Brac to Little Cayman, we've got you covered.
You ever hear a thing like that?
Radio Cayman in the Cayman Islands.
Radio Cayman. Headline. Radio Cayman's newsroom. Headline. These are the biggest stories right now.
Get your melee on at this year's Gamers Bay Esports Tournament and Technology Conference. This year's tournament games are Fortnite Duos, Apex Legends Squad, Smash Brothers Singles, and FIFA 19 Singles. The 3 celebrity gamers heading to Cayman for the event have more than a 10 million subscriber reach combined, including female gamer Jessie Fangs. This year the event is expanding to 2 days, September 28th and 29th. Good afternoon, I'm Dion Anglin with your headlines and news elsewhere. 3 Congolese doctors have been arrested in the Democratic Republic of Congo over the killing of a World Health Organization medic. Cameroonian doctor Richard Mazuko was shot dead in April at a hospital in Butembo where he was treating Ebola patients. The motive for the attack is unclear. Switching to a plant-based diet can help fight climate change, UN experts have said. A major report on land use and climate change says the West's high consumption of meat and dairy produce is fueling global warming. But scientists and officials stopped short of explicitly calling on everyone to become vegan or vegetarian. And Hong Kong demonstrators used laser pointers in anti-government protests. Hundreds of people gathered outside Hong Kong Space Museum on Wednesday night to carry out a protest using laser pointers. It followed the arrest of a student for possessing what police called an offensive weapon after he was found with several of the devices. That's a wrap of your headlines. I'm Dion Anglin.
Radio Cayman, the voice of the Cayman Islands.
What's happening in your community? News and information, music and more. You can find us. www.radiocayman.gov.ky. Like us on Facebook and follow us on Twitter. Radio Cayman is your choice, your voice for today's biggest news. Radio Cayman.
A caring and community spirit, cherished family and cultural values. These are some of the things that still embodies the Caymanian way of life in the Eastern Districts today. Savannah Pharmacy, your neighborhood pharmacy, located in Countryside Shopping Village, is delighted to offer products and services of real value. Whether it's catering to your family's medical needs or carrying apparel, gifts, and beauty products, Savannah Pharmacy provides you with more than just prescriptions. Remember, they're always just around the corner with everything your family needs and convenient opening hours, including Sundays and holidays. Savannah Pharmacy. For more information, call 946-3336.
King Sports Center takes pride in being more than just an ordinary gymnasium. For 14 years, their multi-purpose facility has been providing the community with a variety of sporting, recreational, and relaxation activities. King Sports Center has a bowling alley, lounge bar, multi-purpose rooms, powerhouse gym, rock climbing wall, bungee jumping, a 10,000 square foot rink, and so much more. For more information on the variety of services, call their friendly staff today at 946-5464 or email kings@candw.ky or visit www.kingsportscenter.com. King Sports Center, your one-stop shop for fitness, recreation, and relaxation.
Excuse me, I noticed you from afar.
Really? Me?
Well, not you. The KFC sandwich you're eating.
Oh, Zinger.
Sorry, I'm not trying to be funny.
No, it's called the Zinger Sandwich. Crunchy, juicy, 100% chicken breast, crisp lettuce, sweet mayo on a seeded bun with a little zing. KFC's chicken is not factory breaded, frozen and refried like the Burger Boys. Customize your KFC Zinger and dip it in barbecue sauce.
Wow, now I'm starting to notice you too.
KFC, it's finger licking good.
Hello, I'm Joseph Woods, the Acting Port Director. Our port facility is the hub of the Cayman Islands commerce and economic activity, handling $658 million in imported goods annually. From groceries to construction materials, all sectors of our economy depend on the port. But it is now 40 years old. Its infrastructure is degrading, and we feel the strain from insufficient space for both cargo and cruise operations. The time is now. A new expanded port facility is needed to allow both cargo and cruise to operate efficiently and to support our island's continued growth and development. Support the port, support our tourism, support Cayman's continued growth and development.
Talk today. But I do have some questions. Talk today.
Cayman Islands' foremost listeners' participation program.
Talk today.
Because there are more questions than answers.
What the public is saying.
Waiting to take your calls right now. Sterling Dwayne Ebanks.
Good afternoon and welcome back, and thanks for joining us in the studio. Northside's MLA, Mr. Ezra Miller, is our guest, and thank you, sir, for your service to the country in many capacities, but in particular as a parliamentarian, and as you were sharing with us now, the Cayman Islands People's Party. The People's Party is your initiative to now field at the next general election a candidate in all of the electoral districts.
Yes, that's the plan. But again, I am not proposing that I pick people who will support me to be the party leader. I don't envisage, I don't intend, I will not be involved in the process by which any other electoral district elect their candidates except Northside. No, I will be advocating that I be the candidate for the electoral district in Northside, but I am not going to come boarding down and say, you all should put this person in because I think, no, that's your responsibility. So the responsibility of the Electoral District Committee, not only to identify the person, but to get the person elected.
Right.
And to get the person elected, you need to go out and walk the beat. You got to wear out some tennis shoes, begging and sitting down in people's living room and having discourse with them, discuss their issues, etc. Listen to them, right? And earn their respect to get their vote for the election.
Something you shared earlier, and I was thinking that I've heard it over the years from different sort of political circles, that this notion of participatory democracy that you talk about sounds good, but it doesn't work. The leader needs to come and do exactly what you say that you're not interested in doing. Now, I like what you're sharing, and that it's for those in that area to be the ones to make the decision as to who they want to represent them.
And while we can't introduce a recall clause in the Constitution, the Constitution for the party allows the Electoral District Committee to recall, to throw the candidate out, If he's not abiding by the rules of the party and that committee, they can't take him out of the Legislative Assembly, but they can remove him as the adopted candidate for that electoral district, and they can run somebody else against the next election.
Okay. Well, that's an interesting change. And the other thing I thought I heard you say that in the party's proposed constitution, 10 registered voters in that electoral district need to be back in the candidate. But in our electoral process, the candidate and 2 only have proposed it.
Yeah, this has nothing to do with the
Right.
Cayman Islands Constitution, the Cayman Islands election law.
Right.
When it comes to that adopted candidate being nominated for the general election, it is only going to take 2 people from that district plus him to nominate him.
But
in order to become an adopted candidate, and to apply to be an adopted candidate, you have to get 10 people from that electoral district committee to endorse you.
I like the standard that you're setting in the sense that...
Listen, if you want to run in Northside and you can't get 10 people to sign an application to be an adopted candidate, you can stay home, right?
No, I like what you're sharing.
And what the other thing that kind of thing drives, it drives multiple participation. You see?
And then you talked about the structure of it, given the participation. I mean, the 62 individuals that will be involved.
And every electoral district committee has equal representation on the.
So not proportional to population, but
No.
equal. Yeah, the chairman, the 2 deputies, the treasurer and secretary.
To the central council, they will send the chairman, a member from the public who's not an officer in the district committee, but a member of the district committee, and the adopted candidate.
Yeah.
Whether that adopted candidate sits in the legislative assembly or not.
Yeah, I think it's time where I was sort of reflecting as you were sharing that on the discussion relative to the data protection legislation. We have the businesses, the people who collect the data need to know the law and making sure they're compliant. But we, as the data subjects, whose information has been collected, we kind of need to know where we stand too.
Hey, listen to me. I Google myself every 3 months just to see what I say put out about me. No. You'd be shocked sometimes what you see.
I haven't done that.
Right? But it's a very interesting exercise.
Yeah.
Just Google your name, and let me tell you something. Anything that ever goes in the newspaper winds up on Google.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
What I saw today, be quiet. Stop acting like you know it all unless you're Mr. Google.
Right. Yeah.
No. Now, with respect to our Cayman Constitution, because we understand that it certainly recognizes the opposition and the government, so this party system is there, but it seems to be a two-party system that the Constitution looks at, and now how.
Certainly, the Constitution envisages a multi-party system, but it winds down to 2. But the Constitution talks about the party leader with the majority of the seats in the Legislative Assembly, whether that is by outright election or by coalition, and one of the party leaders of the other party that join him decides to step back and promote the other one. Not only being a premier, but the same thing applies to the leader of the opposition. It's the party on the opposition bench who has the most seats. That leader becomes the leader of the opposition.
Which is a constitutional recognized position and the like.
Yeah.
And that evolution then, there were some of us, and I subscribed to at one point. We look at the party system back in the days of Mr. Orman and the like, and then we've seen a hiatus, and then we've seen it now probably since 2001, a sort of reinvention or attempt to bring it full circle.
I think so. I have been a fierce independent for many years, right? But I learned my lessons, right? And it is blatantly obvious, right, that outside of having a structure, right, it is very difficult to keep people together to form a government.
Right.
Because egos are going to be involved in this, where we have a structure, right?
Yeah.
And you already have the party leader decided by those 62 people. What do you think happens when 6 or 7 independent people who got elected get in a room by themselves with no structure?
Well, something that you shared, just sort of a synopsis of the proposed constitution for the party, the level of accountability that is inherent, the notion that.
I tried to put into the committee, because it wasn't drafted by me solely. Tried to look at experiences in Cayman and try to put in place checks and balances, at least to reduce the possibility of chaos, even if not eliminating it. And also to put the power in the people where it belongs. Because you understand that the 19 adopted candidates are outnumbered 2 to 1. And that's not by chance, that's by design, right? And they cannot hold office. One of the problems we've had with parties in Cayman going back to the 60s is that the party leader was the party, he ran the whole party, it was his party, right? I'm not proposing that this be Ezra Miller party, right? What I'm trying to do here is put in place a system that foments, encourages, demands, allows participatory democracy and gives the people, Caymanians, this constitution is about Caymanians, right? The opportunity to be involved and to have input into the governance and decision making in the country, right? And I've tried to. The Constitution requires the executive of the district committee to meet monthly, the whole district committee, all its members, to meet quarterly, and you can have meetings in between, but that's the minimum amount. You see? So.
Well, something that you've shared, a phrase that comes to mind is notion of succession planning. We talk about it in businesses and in government, and with the greatest respect, if our civics, if our politics doesn't have potential candidates that are being prepared, things happen.
Yeah, and I mean, one of the things that those people who come and have been involved in the Northside District Council for a long period of time, they get an understanding of what I call the dance of legislation. Because often it is not, we have two kinds of legislation. We have legislation that is organic as a result of a problem properly identified and the issues are carried out and a solution to solve those issues. We have legislation that is mentioned in a manifesto, right, in some fine print, right? But we have some political lobby that wants that done. So that gets oftentimes priority. And that's moved through the system and normal people don't think about it.
And that's, as you said, I'm thinking of a few instances where, why did the government amend that? Why did the government, whether it was this government in this sitting, whether it was a government 10 years ago, and sometimes you only see the impact of it down the line only because you're innocent bystander, as it were. Now, as I pointed out, these people that they wanted to put, that they were going to allow to be put on the Public Lands Commission, is the same people who trying to stop me from building restrooms to the public and outside, for Caymanians, right? And you're going to put them on the commission? Come on, man. Yeah. But with the greatest respect, too, I think sometimes we as the electors, the voters, specifically the voters, we kind of stand back and let the politicians don't get involved.
And the politicians, many of the politicians are comfortable with that because they then have the assurance that they can make decisions that won't be interrupted or questioned.
But would you want that as a politician?
I wouldn't want that. I've never wanted that. But there are those who do, trust me. Look at how many district councils we have working. How many people, how many of the current members of the Legislative Assembly, the committee that got them elected has met with them since election.
But that's expediency, maybe at the expense, of anyway.
I can guarantee you that those people who are lobbying him to get laws changed to suit them, who may not necessarily be Caymanian, they're meeting with them regular.
Sorry, I'm going to beg you to repeat that again because
so the lobbyists, whether that is represented by the Chamber of Commerce, represented by the Accounting Association, the Legal Association, the Contractors Association, the Plumbers Association, or the only people who have here is Caymanian Association, right? They are meeting with the politicians to get the laws changed to suit whatever they want to do. So are developers. The only people that the politicians are not meeting with on a regular basis is the people who elected them.
Could I take it?
That's what I want to change.
Right. Take it aside. I want to ask you something, and if it's not the opportune time now, forgive me. Someone sent me an article again. It was in the print media. It was the copy from the print media that he sent through. It was a few weeks back. I don't have it here. I was looking at it again just last evening. It was talking about these air parcels that are being created, and it was referencing
volumetric parcels. The fancy word.
Yes, sir. So put your stakes down. Anyway, it was a development somewhere in the Red Bay Grand Harbour area, and the developer was saying that it's going to save so much money for the purchasers, and then the person comments here, but this is at the expense of the government. So it worked out to be, was it $1 million or 10 million? It was some million. And he was saying how this works out, but this is going to cost the taxpayer, it could cost the country revenue.
But one of the changes is that the more recent change to the stamp duty law is probably what the person was talking about, as opposed to volumetric parcels.
Okay.
Because what we did there was, what was happening before was people were buying a piece of land for $100,000, putting 50 condos on it, and saying each condo used $2,000 of land, right? And they were paying stamp duty on the $2,000. but they were getting a $1 million apartment. Right? So what we've done now is that the stamp duty must be paid on the value of that it was sold at for that. Even if you buy it before, right? It has to be for the full value.
Yeah.
And you saw the ads in the paper where they say buy it before 31st of December.
Yeah.
And again, that's.
But I never understood that whole idea of
that's conning themselves,
right?
Because the money that they put in is what government does to improve the infrastructure to make things easier for the people they're selling the condos from, right?
Right.
So they're cutting off their nose. What the people cut off your nose but your chin. But the developer and the people who are buying those, most of who are not Caymanians, are happy to do it. I mean,
All right. We do have a caller online in our studio. Northside's MLA, Mr. Ezra Miller, is our guest. Hey, good afternoon and welcome you on Talk Today.
Sterling, is that me?
It is indeed. How are you?
Hey, good afternoon. I'm fine, blessed and thankful.
Amen.
Mr. Miller, good afternoon, sir.
Good afternoon, ma'am.
This call is actually for you, Mr. Miller.
Oh boy, okay.
I'm worried, man.
I'm shaking.
You're not in trouble today, Mr. Miller. You're not in
That's
trouble
good.
today. I continue to support you and
thank you very much.
To let you know to keep up the good works. We all have trials and tribulations, but bit by bit, we will get to the top of the mountain.
Right.
I just wanted to call. Sterling knows about this FC International. I wanted to remind you, Mr. Miller, that your week in Northside is coming up.
Yes,
on
ma'am.
the 19th to the 23rd, and I want to remind the public.
And I'll send out. I'll make sure we get out to the kids and stuff through my office in Northside. And I'll be there to support it.
Right. We're asking the parents to get their kids ready. It is free.
You say it's August the 19th?
19th, yeah.
Yeah, your week in Northside, Mr. Miller, is the 19th.
Next week is Georgetown at Annex.
3rd of August.
Yeah. Right.
To the 23rd.
Georgetown is next week, coming up the 12th to the 16th. At the
Annex.
What we call it, the Annex.
Yeah.
Sterling to the Annex.
Well, that's what I know.
Yes.
Westbeer. Excuse him, not a Westbeer.
Hey, listen to me now. I'm a Westbeer.
He speaks 3 languages English, Westbeer, and he learning some Georgetown now too.
Just letting the parents know, that all kids. This is something that these guys, FC International, has been doing for the past 25, I think it's 25, 26 years. But
I already been called twice about it.
Oh, okay. But I just wanted to call.
Yeah, but I appreciate it, and it's good to get it out on the radio so that people in Northside listening can hear about it. Right?
All right. And we can announce it again
if you have any flyers you've made, if not, I'll try to get some flyers made and put up in the gas station and the stores and stuff.
We certainly have flyers, Mr. Miller. We have flyers, and I will see to it that they get some of those to you. Because I have the one for Georgetown. I don't have the one in hand yet for Northside.
Okay, I'm leaving the island tomorrow morning and be back on Wednesday, so get them to me on Wednesday so I can get them distributed on Thursday.
Okay.
Give me a call Thursday, and I'll collect them from you in town. Okay?
Okay.
All right.
No
All right, thanks for calling.
Sir.
All right, thanks, Gavin.
You have a wonderful and safe trip, and they want to thank you for your support also.
Thank you very much.
All right.
You're very welcome.
Thanks very much. And we'll be reminding them tomorrow as well. But, community working together. I appreciate the call this year. Well, Mr. Miller, it's so the House is in session next week, Wednesday? Is that true?
No,
I just kidding.
That's fine with me. I'll be ready. I should see from the landlord. Don't take me long here, really.
I should be here. I can see.
I have no idea where it is, when it is. I would be glad if they were having it next week.
Honestly, I admit to that. That was just.
No, that's cool. That's cool.
No, but I like what you were sharing, that you were hoping that or you believed, and this is not the first thing you said this, that the Legislative Assembly should be meeting more frequently, and if I did not misunderstand you, you should know that it's going to be meeting.
The fact that the 19 of us, or whether the 19 of us, but the government itself cannot commit itself to we're going to meet February, April, June, September, October, whatever they pick.
Yeah.
You know, we've always tried to avoid July and August in order to allow members to travel with their families and things for over the summer. But we don't seem to be able to do that. I can't explain it. Right?
Well, I listen. If those guys tell me, boy, you really causing trouble today, but I accept that. That's fair enough. As you look at it, though, it is a summer, and I think, as I said to people before, summer is a wonderful time for different reasons. September is that month of transition, and the like. Any sort of thoughts you want to say to us? We go back to school shortly.
Yeah,
universities.
I noticed that the education department is doing their regular maintenance work and of the school in Northside, and school is scheduled to open. I think it's on the 27th of August. 26th, because I think they closed a week earlier and opened a week earlier because they had some training because of changes in the curriculum. We have a new principal at the Northside School who has roots in Northside, so we expect wonderful things from her. She has a good team of teachers. The Aidan Mile Primary School is in pretty good shape, and my daughter has gone completely through it, and she has done really well. My son, many years ago, went completely through the Catholic school system, and I would hazard a guess that academically, she is close to where Denison was. A little bit less because she's bilingual, and in many respects because we speak Spanish in the house, not me, but them, her and her mother, because I want them to be bilingual, and she's spent, 3-4 months in Cuba at a time for that particular reason. But socially, he earns a hit of where Denison was when he left primary school. So it has been a good experience. My other daughter starts in year 1 this year, and she's all excited. I mean, I just got a phone call from her sitting there telling me that she had done 1 page of her homework today.
Aww.
So I must make sure and bring her Burger King for her.
But see, this is a joy, man.
Oh, listen, man. So it's I really enjoy dealing with the two spectrums of our society. Most of us in the middle, I believe, can kind of be ourselves. So our senior citizen program is back on track now. It's meeting every Tuesday. I sponsor the whole thing. The school, the young people, the Pilgrim Holiness Church has a wonderful youth program on Friday evenings. Our church has a youth program for boys, and Girls Brigade is very active. There's lots going on for the people. Just what we need is parental involvement in these organizations and in the school. But we had a few last year. We had a few events where we had huge turnout for parents, which was good.
Yeah. Something I'll if you'll allow me.
My other daughter's going to Clifton Hunter, so I'll be involved with that out there as well come next year.
I'm looking forward to you sharing your thoughts. But if I could just father to father. I had a couple of parents recently. I don't want to call it a meeting because that wouldn't be right. It was a discussion, and they were sharing some challenges that they had relative to time. So they want to get involved with things in their community and in their schools and the like. But not just the difficulty of how much time it takes to get from work to home in the evenings. There is that as well. But the notion of the perception and behaviors of employees and colleagues and the like relative to who can leave when and that sort of thing. And one comment that one of the parents shared sort of resonates is that it seems that we've now gone to a society where those values from the family, whether it's a single income family or a single parent family or what have you, or those extended, blended, otherwise families, that we're no longer looking at that. We want to care about what happens in this organization without seeing the knock-on effect of all the other things. And presumably there was something that was happening with one of the schools in the evening, and just to get there was almost as if you had to take a vacation day.
One of the things that is, in my view, contributing to some of our social decay is the fact that employers no longer place any value. In fact, it's frowned upon. Caymanians who have extended family responsibilities and relationships. And you bring in an expat worker here who is not married, and he can work till 12 o'clock at night. And we don't pay enough attention, and our labour law does not provide enough for, because we don't have any unions which would have fought for these things, toward those extended responsibilities that parents have, right? And I know parents who have to take a day vacation to come to the school graduation because their employer won't give them 2 hours off, right? That's ludicrous. I was invited by the pastor of my church to make a few comments on the Constitution of the Cayman Islands and our responsibilities under the Constitution as civics on the day the government launched the constitutional celebrations by the big service in town, right? And I talked about, I gave the history of the Constitution and everything else, but I took the opportunity to say to parents in particular, present, and to the senior citizens, that, the young people today are not being given from the community, from the village, from the elders, in a kind of global communal perspective, morals and ethics, what is to be expected of you. And they have things on the internet that are impacting them with tons of information that you and I had we had no idea we had not to deal with that kind of thing at all when we were growing up. And what we do, we sit back, and when the young people falter, we blame them or we blame their parents. And one of the things that I think we need to do is to get more acceptance by employers that Caymanians must be given a bly when they have these extended responsibilities, right? When I have a child who's graduating from school, child is having they're having a parents' evening at the school. I need to go and talk to the teachers, right? Really, should Caymanians have to be starving from 12 till 3 because they got to take their lunchtime to go to the school to pick up their child, to drop them off at a care place? Where's the initiative by employers and the government even to have daycare for parents, particularly single parents? And we have to accept that this has become the norms in a society, and we need to get focused back on our, call it religious, call it Christian principle, but those were the things that gave you and I the ability to deal with the impact of information and changing lifestyle and being led astray by peers when we traveled or when we were at a university. We had that basic, solid foundation. And my concern is that the kids are not getting that. They're not getting it from the churches. They're not getting it from the schools, and they're not getting it from the employers. There's no appreciation, in my view, of employers of that extended responsibility when it comes to family. You might have a child that gets sick, while you're at work,
I think what was striking was
most Caymanians, if given an hour or 2 hours off to go take a child to a clinic, right, would come back and put the 2 hours in that same day,
They make up for it.
Or they're certainly going to make up for it before the week is out.
Yeah, man. I believe that work ethic, but I think sometimes what I found has fallen.
We force them to steal the time.
Yeah, it was one particular individual, but I saw it on a number of others who shared that after Ivan, their office relocated them to different places, and for those who went back to their country where they had family or friends there, just like the people who were here that had connections, when 5 or 6 or 7, whatever time they would normally leave, they wanted to leave at that time. Those who didn't stayed because they had nothing to go home to.
Yeah, exactly.
There was internet access. They were when they go back to wherever they were leaving when it was time to leave, and the people who didn't have anything were in
that's
office.
The difference. And I found, and I saw this being involved in the industry, working in the industry, that the partners tended to like people who worked till 9, 10 o'clock at night.
Yeah.
Now, my argument is, listen, if you work until 9, 10 o'clock at night, one or two things. You're not done nothing all day long, or you need help on a daily basis. But they thought that this was extra commitment by people because, and when you walk around the offices, look around, they're on the internet all day long. They don't start to work till 5 o'clock.
Yeah. Well, my view was shaped by a fellow who said, if you can get a lot done between 8 and 5, you shouldn't have to do much between 5 and 8.
Exactly. I tell the story of the first time I went to Government House of cocktail party on the Governor's Russell, so it wasn't yesterday, right? And we were chatting, and Mr. Corny Gomez walked up and he had his briefcase. So he told Governor Russell that, but Governor Russell asked him, he said, I'm on my way home from work and I didn't finish my stuff at the day, so I'm taking it home to finish it. And Mr. Russell looked at me and says, Mr. Miller, that's a good example. I said, no, sir. He now worked hard all day long and he need help. Well, I don't think that endeared me to the governor. But it's, it's I believe that I have found in life that if I treat people and employees a little extra good, so to speak, right? You get it back tenfold. It's when you're holding people to punch clocks and you're holding them to regiments, and you expect them to everybody to be the last person to leave, so nobody leaves, right? It doesn't work. They find ways of goofing off during the day. They're listening to talk today under the table.
That should be a national law. You have to listen to it.
Right. But, and I think that we need to spend more time looking at those aspects of Caymanian employment. Because if we want the family structure to work and continue to deliver the quality of citizens that we need, right, to continue to build this country, we need to place emphasis on that.
Indeed. Well, it's always a pleasure. You're a great example, Mr. Miller, just like,
Why time flies.
Wow. Yeah. Well, DJ Lynn is so busy multitasking that he knows Miss Norman's going to give him a warm time after this. You know what?
That's one of the things I don't boast about, multitasking.
No, sir.
That's not possible. You got to do one of those two things is being done inadequately.
Yeah. I do what I do, and then I do something else. But thank you for your time, sir.
A piece of paper for you.
Yeah, well, this is the number for the... Oh, sorry. No, it's not. Mr. Miller, I got probably get in trouble.
Yeah, but actually I have somebody waiting on me, so right. I got to go.
Thank you, sir.
Thanks for having me.
Blessings to you. And
what I'm going to try to do is I'm going to try to come every other Thursday.
Yeah, well, I'll have my people call you people.
Yeah, man. Well, you'll get a note from my wonderful personal assistant in the office,
There you go.
She organizes my life.
All right.
Thank you.
Mr. Diaz Miller, Northside MLA. And thank you all for listening and sharing with us. Please, I say this with the greatest respect, let's continue to be involved and invested in our society, and whatever we do, can we do it better to make it better for all of us? I joke and jest with DJ Lynn so much, but I think the others realize that he's probably one of my favorite. It's a good guy, man. Watching him. Right, DJ Lynn? Yeah, he won't say it publicly, but I know he thinks the same. All right. Please join us again tomorrow. Come back for the record. And then, of course, stay tuned for our program. And we want you to be a part of Talk Today right after the midday news. We're going to have a discussion. We're going to be talking about population growth, development, and some things. And Rich Dyer is going to be our guest with Sarah. It's going to be exciting. I'm going to learn some good things. Hopefully, you'll join us. Until then, be blessed.
Talk Today is brought to you by Fidelity Bank. For all your banking needs, visit fidelitygroup.com. Fidelity, we're good for you.